super fun, and all about artisan cheese and more to melt your peaceful heart and toast your peaceful life. Coming to you from the Appalachian Mountains of southwestern Virginia, this is the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hey, this is Scott Hall from Peaceful Heart Farm, and you are listening to the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hello, everybody. Melanie Hall here. Hope you're doing well. The conversation today and every day revolves around the value of tradition, traditional homestead living, traditional raw milk products, and artisan cheese. Topics discussed here are designed to create new perspectives and possibilities for how you might add the taste of tradition to your life. So today, a day in the life on our homestead. So this is going to be all about traditional homestead living. My brother-in-law says we are always working, and he is so right. And we love it. There is never a dull moment around here. For sure, sometimes it seems like just too much. And wouldn't a life of leisure be preferable? Well, no, not really. As I imagine that life, I can only see boredom and always searching for something new and interesting. Here, we don't have to search for it. It comes to us every single day. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of a whirlwind day I recently experienced. First, I want to take a minute and say welcome to all the new listeners. Welcome back, veteran homestead loving regulars. Thank you so much for stopping by the FarmCast for every single episode. I appreciate you so much. And let me share some things that are going on this week. I'm going to skip most of the updates on the animals as they're going to show up in my rendition of A Day in the Life on our homestead. I will just briefly mention that Sweet Pea and Johnny are still looking for a new forever home. We love them, but we simply do not need 4 donkeys. We intentionally reduced our sheep population, and now the coyotes have reduced it even further. And it will take time to rebuild what we lost. And in the end, we will still have only a small number of sheep, perhaps a dozen or so, and that's compared to our high of 70 animals in the flock. 4 donkeys did pretty good then. But not now. We're also winding down our cashmere goat herd this fall, and next up we will be bringing in a few Kiko goats, and perhaps I'll do a whole podcast on this breed of goat. Basically, they were bred in New Zealand, and the wild goats were bred with domestic stock to create a breed that is disease and parasite resistant, so they're very healthy. And then my favorite attribute is that they bred for little to no hoof maintenance. Most domestic goats in the U.S. have a really hard time with their hooves, and our goats were no exception to that. And I look forward to raising goats that can be comfortable on their feet without constant attention. I want them to be comfortable. And so these Kiko goats kind of fit that bill. Now that's it for now. I want to get on to the topic of the day, which is a day in the life on the homestead. And I hope you enjoy this brief glimpse of the story of our life. So our day begins the same every morning. Scott and I pray the rosary together. It's a great meditation and starts our day off in the right frame of mind. God first. And then the morning milking gets going. And there isn't much for me to do. Scott handles most of the milking tasks. I handle some of the cleanup at the end. The only thing I have for this morning is to tend to the baby quail chicks. They're out there in their brooder, and I make sure they have food and fresh water. And these little ones get checked on twice a day. They're big enough now where they need to be fed twice a day. The feeders are just not large enough to hold enough feed for them to get fed once a day. So the grown-ups, they only get fed in the evening. They've got these nice big feeder trays. So everyone looks good this morning, and they are happy to have their food and water. Now Scott is still working on the milking, so I'm going to take the opportunity for a brief walk through the garden. And while I'm out there, I decide to harvest some fresh herbs for the farmer's market. It's one of those spur-of-the-moment decisions just because I have some time and it's a beautiful morning to be in the garden. So I'm sprinting back to the house, pick up some scissors and a bucket, and I'm back out in the garden in a flash. I love cutting fresh herbs. This morning it's basil leaves, oregano sprigs, and bunches of thyme. The smell is so heavenly. So I get those herbs quickly stored in the cooler. Later, I'll package them up, probably tomorrow. Um, Now, I need to have protein snacks quickly available, and hard-boiled eggs is kind of my favorite go-to for that. So my Kasori, which is an Instapot look-alike pressure cooker, it can handle 18 eggs at a time. 6 minutes under the pressure, 6 minutes cool down, and then a natural pressure release. And sorry, I said that wrong. It's 6 minutes under the pressure and then 6 minutes of cool down, just releasing the pressure naturally. And then you do the quick pressure release and open the lid. So 6 minutes cooking, 6 minutes letting the pressure cool down, come down automatically. And then I take those eggs and I put them 6 minutes in a cold water bath, and then I peel them. And I like using my pressure cooker because the shells always just fall off when I am peeling them. So that's why I make, besides the convenience of it, I just put them in there and turn it on and it goes. So now generally we eat 2 meals a day, and Scott makes us brunch somewhere between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. usually, and it's usually kind of in the 11 to 12 range that we have our morning brunch. And if I plan well, my dinner will be around 5 p.m. Scott's dinner is always much later. Well, not always, but usually his preference is to work outside right up until milking time in the evening. And then that takes him way into the evening. He'll eat after all of the milking is done and he's had a shower. And that's an Italian evening meal time around 9 or 10 in the evening. And sometimes he even gets the Italian siesta in the afternoon. Most times not, though. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that when we were in Italy, that the people literally eat at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but they've also had that really long, and they're up late, of course, into the wee hours of the morning, but they kind of sleep a little bit at night, and then they sleep a little bit in the afternoon, so they have these 2 sleeping periods. It's interesting culture. Anyway, all right, so that's just a brief overview of when our meals are going to kind of fit in here, because I'm not really going to talk about those. Now, I've got 4 quarts of strawberries that need to be attended to today, and I'll be making jam out of those. I love strawberry jam. It's a quick job to cut out the stems and dice them up, and then 2 quarts of cut berries, and there's 6 cups of sugar. And that's it. There's 2 quarts of cut berries and 6 cups of sugar. And then I add a dash of lemon to help maintain the bright red color. Well, the strawberries are mixed with the sugar in the pot on the stove, but I've got to interrupt that process and forego the cooking and canning part. It is a day in the life, you know. I'll cover the pot with a clean towel and get back to it in a little while. We need to take care of some animals. I have cream also warming up in the butter churn, and so there's still about an hour before it will be warm enough to churn that into butter. So it should be possible to get this all done in time. So the flies have been horrendous. I've talked about that in previous podcasts, and we have 2 animals that are suffering from pink eye. In humans, we call it conjunctivitis. It's a bacterial infection of the eye, and the flies they irritate the eye and make it susceptible to the bacteria. And then also the flies are spreading it from one to another. They're carrying that bacteria around. Anyway, we put antibiotic cream directly in the eye and then follow up with injectable antibiotic. Now, we are as natural as possible in raising and caring for our livestock. However, I'm sure you've heard me say this before. If they need medical treatment, they get it. And in this case, blindness is a real possibility if the condition is left untreated. And we spent quite some time checking on each and every cow to make sure that those were the only 2 affected. And I even treated Newton, our youngest calf, at 3 weeks of age. This was prophylactic, just in case. The younger calves are often the most susceptible. And he looked fine, but we treated him anyway. Just the cream in the eye, not the injection. Now, this whole process took more time than I had planned. There were 4 different groups of animals. There are the milking girls. Then there's the group we call the nursery girls. We do not milk them, but they are nursing calves, 3 calves between 2 of them. And we also have Luna in that group, and she's a heifer and has no calf. And Buttercup is also in that group. She did not have a calf this year. Now, and then there's the boys. The boys are always in a group by themselves because two of them are bulls, and they can't just run with the girls. That would be a breeding disaster. And then there was Virginia and baby Newton. So all four different groups. And all in all, it took a longer than an hour that I had set aside because I needed to make that butter. But the cream was still in good shape for making butter. It needs to reach close to 60 degrees. And it can be a little bit warmer than that. And so I am back inside now running the electric butter churn while the strawberries are heating up and cooking for the jam. And it's a little risky to do both of these things at once, as they both have like a break point that must be met. And I gambled anyway. I figured the butter would get done long before the strawberries and sugar reached the gel point. And of course, it didn't. So I don't use pectin in my jams. I just cook it to gel point, and that usually takes about 40 minutes or so. And the butter got done just a few minutes before the jam reached the gel point. So what do I do now? Well, I just turn the churn off and let the butter sit in the churn until I can get to it. I still had to be quick, though. The problem there with the butter is that the warmer the butter gets, the harder it is to work with. It literally, it's melting in my hands if it gets too warm, and you need it to be a little bit firm. So let's finish up that strawberry jam. It's ready. I quickly fill the jars, clean the rims off, secure the lids, put them in the water bath canner, and now I have time for the butter. It takes a while for the water to heat up to a rolling boil for the jam, and I don't have to do anything. I'm just standing around. So this is a good time to work on the butter. Now, once it reaches the boiling point, I just set a timer to process the jam. So that's also easy to just reach over there and set the timer. So I actually have a pretty good time span here. And so I clean up the butter. You're rinsing it over and over with cold water to get all the extra buttermilk out. And then I squish it firmly into these 4-ounce silicone soap molds that I have. And there's 12 of them in the tray. And then I put that tray into the freezer. And then tomorrow I remove it from the freezer, pop out and wrap each of those 4-ounce blocks of butter, and I wrap them up in a wax paper and tape them. And then I put them back in the freezer. Okay, now the butter's in the freezer, the jam's processing in the canner. I have all of this cleanup to do for these two tasks, and that's happening. So I'm pretty messy when filling jars, and there are bits of jam all over. And the butter, wow, that requires lots of soap to get all that greasy mess in the churn cleaned up. The bowls and the utensils, they have to be cleaned up. And whew, it feels good to get all that done. So what's next? Well, yes, there is more. The jam's still in that, is still cooking on the, or in the canner. And so now I'm ready to make blueberry jam. So I smashed them and added the sugar, and I got started heating them up. Again, that takes a while. I have to get more jars ready for the blueberry jam. So while it's heating up, I'm doing that. Somewhere in there, the jars of the strawberry jam got finished, and I get those out of the water bath canner. But I'll keep that water in a near boiling point waiting for that blueberry jam. That makes the second batch quicker, as the time to reach that boil after adding the jars will be shorter. Now, as the blueberry jam nears the gel point, I'm stirring constantly to keep it from sticking. I make sure I have my clothes covered. This is blueberry, right? And it will begin to spit out blueberry goo all over the place, and those stains are hard to get out. So, stir more. Keep that under control. That's another mess to be cleaned up later. It splatters all over the stove, the cabinets, everywhere. It's not too bad, but it does just... It's interesting as it reaches that gel point and starts spitting out blueberry goo. So I'm repeating the filling of the jars, adding the lids, put them in the canner. Now, I'm a little tired at this point, but honestly, there's still so much to do. I think I'll take a much-needed short break while the second batch of jam is processing. So I have about 45 minutes or so to relax. So now, after the blueberry jam is done and I've relaxed for a few minutes, it's late in the afternoon, And I need to create the weekly newsletter for all who are following what we are up to on the homestead. That goes out in the email. And I like communicating with all of my customers and those who just follow us because they like hearing about our progress on the homestead. And it's important to get the information out weekly. There are always updates and changes to what is happening at the farmers market. Now, the newsletter's pretty easy, again, but it takes time. I've done it so many times. I have made the process quick and efficient. The newsletter is done now, and it's out there in the email ethers, and now it's probably time for evening milking and other chores. So it just keeps going and going. I'm like the Energizer Bunny. We start each milking event by warming up Newton's milk. He gets 2 half-gallon calf milk bottles morning and evening. So that's 2 gallons per day. 2 half-gallons bottles, which makes a gallon at each morning and evening feeding. And as a side note, tomorrow I'll spend quite a bit of time filling up gallon jars for just this purpose. We collect milk for a few days, and then we either make it into cheese one time a week, and the other time a week it gets spread out into all kinds of stuff. Some of it goes into Newton's gallon milk jars. Then we and let me just say that we heat that gallon jar up in a bucket of hot water. So after about a half hour, we pour out the now cold water and refill it with hot water again. And in another half hour, it's warm enough for him to drink and ready to be poured into the calf bottles. And all of this minutia becomes second nature as we do it twice a day. Go get the cows, get them prepped for milking, turn on the machine, put the milking inflation on the teats, wait for about 6 minutes, and they're done, 2 at a time. So there's a second round for Violet, because there are 3 cows that are being milked. And the milk gets filtered, and it's poured into 5-gallon cans that are stored in the bulk cooling tank. And the milk, it has to be cooled to below 40 degrees in less than 2 hours. And then all of the cleanup begins after that. So this is us collecting the milk. I'll get back to what we do with that in a little few minutes. So while Scott is doing those milking tasks, I'm taking care of the quail. The babies get food and water again. I collect eggs from the big girls, give them feed, check their automatic watering system. I refill the 5-gallon bucket that automatically feeds into little cups in their cages as needed, and they peck on the little buttons and it puts more water in there. So it's a pretty cool little automatic system. And there's not a lot to do, but it's a daily task nonetheless. Now, at the end of all of that milking is lots of cleanup. The calf bottles, the milk filter, the milking machine, all have to be meticulously cleaned and sanitized. Then dinner, a shower, and it's time to wind down for the evening. And for me, that's usually around 8 or 8:30. Scott is sometimes just eating dinner at 9 or 9:30, and he may or may not have had that wonderful shower. He has long days, longer days even than me. Now, there's a lot more to do tomorrow. It'll be Thursday, and I need to get ready for the farmers markets that are on Friday and Saturday. And that means making labels for those 2 new jams, getting on the computer and actually creating those labels and getting them printed and getting the jars labeled and all that. And remember those herbs I cut early this morning? Yeah, those have to be packaged as well. So, and I also have gotten behind on making my butter, and I have 3 more half gallons of cream. So I'll make another butter tomorrow. That'll catch me up. I'm not sure how I got behind, but it'll be good to catch up. Now, all of the milk cans, as I said, get emptied and cleaned up actually twice a week. Once when we make cheese and once on Thursdays when the milk goes in all different directions. I pour the milk into 14 1-gallon jars, and those are for feeding Newton for the next week. And then I will pour up milk for the Friday and Saturday herd share pickups out of that milk. That'll actually come from Thursday morning's milk. Then I need 1.5 gallons of milk put back to make yogurt. That'll be Monday or Tuesday next week. And I may even pour up some drinking milk for us. Now, any cans that remain that have milk still in them, I skim the cream off of those, and then I store the cream in those half-gallon jars. It takes 3 of them to make that butter. So there's usually enough cream, really thick cream on those to make one batch of butter. And so that actually will also happen on next week on Tuesday or Wednesday. So the yogurt and the butter happen once a week, somewhere Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday-ish. So I make 3 pounds of butter at a time, usually, as I said, once a week. And then I'll have some extra cream. I've got the 3.5 gallons, but then there's more cream that I've skimmed off. And so what I do is I add that back to the skim milk and make a half and half, my own homemade half and half concoction, because Scott loves his coffee, but it's really flavored with a lot of half and half. Now, in the end, there's going to be leftover skim milk. What do we do with that? Well, it gets poured on the garden. The green beans and tomatoes are loving that milk fertilizer. They look amazing. Now, the day I just described is not every day, but it is very often the life that I live. And it's wonderful. Actually, on most days, I laze around and would only make one batch of jam and maybe no butter. And sometimes Scott takes a nap in the middle of the day or comes in and just veggies out on Facebook or YouTube. And sometimes he's doing more than vegging out, though sometimes he's sharing his day in the life on our Facebook page. If you're not following us there, please do. You get my perspective here, and Scott's perspective can be found on the Facebook page with pictures and videos. Just search for Peaceful Heart Farm and it should come right up. Like us and share our content. Well, I got tired just talking about all of that. I think I'll end early today. We have that luxury anytime we want within limits. The cows still need to be milked twice a day, and the quail need daily care. But other than that, we set our schedule. We decide how much we do in a given day. So my brother-in-law says that we seem to always be working, and when is age going to slow us down? Well, we hope that's a long way in the future. I'm 66, and Scott will be 66 next month. No, actually, sorry, it's a month after next. But this lifestyle keeps us fit. We get to eat healthy food that we have produced ourselves. Or at the very least, we know the farmer from which we purchased those eggs and hydroponic lettuce. And the blueberries and strawberries that went into the jams came from local farmers as well. We all grow good food and support each other. I hope you enjoyed that walk through a day in my life. As I said, every day is not that busy, but I really enjoy the challenge in finding out how much I can accomplish in a day. I'm not crazy enough to do it every day, though. I also need to spend some time sitting at my computer making podcasts for you guys. I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening and sharing our joy. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please hop over to Apple Podcasts or whatever podcasting service that you use, subscribe there, and give us a 5-star rating and a review. If you like this content and want to help out the show, again, the absolute best way you can do that is to share it with any family or friends that might be interested in this type of content. Get it out there on all of your social media. It really helps those algorithms put it in front of more and more people. Let them know about the Peaceful Heart FarmCast. And thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. And until next time, may God fill your life with grace and peace.